Two countries, both rich in resources. One becomes a global power, the other struggles with poverty and debt. Why? Is it about history, geography, leadership, or something much deeper in the global system itself? Welcome to the world of development and underdevelopment theories, where political science meets economics, history, and justice. Welcome back to the Learning Studio. You're watching our political science series, and in today's episode, we'll dive into development and underdevelopment theories, exploring why the world is divided between the global north and the global south, and how scholars have tried to explain and change that reality. We'll trace the ideas from modernization to dependency, from world systems to post-development, theories that have shaped the global conversation on progress and inequality. And in our next episode, we'll explore the future of global order, where we'll tie together every theme from this series to imagine the world that's coming next. The promise of development after World War II, as new nations gained independence, the world began to dream of development for all. The idea was simple. With the right policies and aid, every country could follow the path of industrialized Western nations. This belief gave rise to Modernization Theory, led by thinkers like Wallerstein, who described development as a linear journey through 5 stages, from traditional society to high-mass consumption. To modernize, nations were told to adopt Western values, institutions, and markets. But by the 1970s, many realized that this model wasn't working, especially for the global South. Dependency and the birth of underdevelopment theory. Scholars like Andre Gunder Frank and Raoul Prebisch argued that underdevelopment wasn't an accident. It was produced by the global capitalist system. Wealthy countries grew rich by extracting resources, labor, and profits from the poor ones. Colonialism, unequal trade, and corporate control kept developing nations dependent, locked into roles as suppliers of raw materials and consumers of finished goods. This was the essence of dependency theory, that development in one part of the world often means underdevelopment in another. World systems theory, a global perspective. Later, sociologist Immanuel Wallerstein expanded this idea through world systems theory, dividing the world into 3 zones. Core nations, advanced economies controlling finance and technology. Semi-peripheral nations, emerging economies balancing between core and periphery. Peripheral nations, resource-dependent countries often exploited for cheap labor. This framework explained how inequality is systemic, not just about national policy, but about global power structures. Post-development and the search for alternatives. By the 1990s, critics began questioning whether development itself was a Western concept imposed on others. Thinkers like Arturo Escobar argued that the idea of development often silenced indigenous knowledge and local traditions. Instead, they proposed plural paths, focusing on sustainability, human well-being, and cultural autonomy rather than blind economic growth. The Global South today. Today, countries in the Global South are redefining development on their own terms, from Make in India and African Renaissance to Latin America's pink tide. The rise of new powers like China, Brazil, and India challenges the old order, showing that the map of development is no longer one-directional. But challenges remain. Debt crises, climate change, and global inequality continue to test the idea of shared prosperity. Development and underdevelopment are not just economic conditions, they are political relationships. They remind us that the world's wealth and poverty are 2 sides of the same coin. The real question for our century isn't, how can poor countries catch up? It's, can we build a world where development means dignity, not domination? And that's today's lecture on development and underdevelopment theories, the story of how power, history, and hope have shaped our unequal world. In our next episode, we'll conclude this journey with the future of global order, exploring how technology, climate change, and shifting power centers will redefine politics, economics, and humanity itself. This is the Learning Studio, where learning never stops.